What is going on, Governor Chisgule here, and today we're going to talk about whether or not Attila and Takeda are completely broken. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We've got an exciting topic that you all have been talking about a lot, which is Attila and Takeda. You've seen the insane reports from my previous videos where we do huge damage, and now we want to take an opportunity to break down how this commander actually works, because I think Attila and Takeda are somewhat misunderstood. We're going to explain why it is that they're doing well on the battlefield. We're going to explain how we think that it's changed the metagame of Rise of Kingdoms, and we're going to talk a bit about whether or not this is actually broken or okay, and what it means for the game as a whole. So let's dive right in to talk about why is it that Attila and Takeda are doing so well. The first thing we need to understand about a game like Rise of Kingdoms is that there is a meta game. Now, for those of you that are new to games that are so intense in their strategy and deeply breaking down what's happening, a metagame refers to what is good at this moment in time and the things that people are doing to conquer what is good at this moment in time. Well, everybody can see Attila and Takeda are doing well, but let's talk about why. To do that, we have to look at their skills. We have to look at the talents that are available. And let's start there. First and foremost, we need to talk about Attila's active skill. For the next 4 seconds, you increase your normal attack damage and counterattack damage. And your normal attacks have a chance to do this extra damage. And the enemy attack reduction of 50% is pretty significant. Now, this ability is cool, but Attila and Takeda have no way to generate rage. So you can't actually get all that much benefit from this in a way that would be really terrifying, except there is a way. And we need to talk about that because it would completely change the way that you are playing against this combination. And boy, when we fully explain this, people are going to go like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is what's actually happening. So this is an amazing ability, but there's no way for these two to generate rage to make it go off as frequently as it would need to be 100% uptime of 30% extra normal attack damage and 30% extra counterattack damage. Now, that counterattack damage is going to make it so that you're going to really hurt the people that are hitting you. The normal attack damage is, of course, how this combination does work on the battlefield. There's no skill damage. And the enemy attack reduction is going to make this army much more survivable. But again, no way to generate rage, which means this shouldn't be as scary as it is. The next thing that we need to get a look at that I think really influences how Attila and Takeda work is to now go, and we need to go get a look at Takeda, because there's some important stuff going on here. The first thing we need to look at is when taking damage, there is a 10% chance to reduce the normal attack damage taken and counterattack damage taken by 25% for 3 seconds. And they take 5% less skill damage. Now, we need to talk about skill damage, and we need to talk about normal attack damage taken and counterattack damage taken. Because what I think is happening, and we need to go look in a battle log to actually understand and confirm whether or not this is true, and we can do that together in this video in just a bit. But my hypothesis here, and we'll go look, is that when an army like Attila and Takeda is getting swarmed, and it's getting hit by many armies all at once, right? Because people think it's a good idea to swarm an Attila Takeda rally to try to do more damage to it. What I think is happening, people, is that every one of those armies, I think, might be giving a chance to activate Immovable as the Mountain, which reduces the normal attack damage you're taking by 25% and the counterattack damage you're taking by 25%. Well, guess what? Most Garrison commanders that would defend against an Attila Takeda rally do normal attack damage, which means that when you're swarming this rally, you are committing a proper crime against your alliance because you're now making it so that you're not doing all that much damage to Attila Takeda, and Attila Takeda is now taking way less damage from the Garrison, which probably has Charles Martel, who's not doing skill damage, which probably has Richard I, which is not doing skill damage, or Constantine, which is not doing skill damage. Maybe you've got an E-Song, but guess what? There's a 5% skill damage taken reduction over here, and on Attila, there's an additional 15% skill damage taken reduction. So if normal attack damage is the way that you're going to beat down this combo, but you're swarming it, so you're now making it so they take less normal attack damage and less counter attack damage, you are making it much harder for your alliance to beat Attila Takeda by swarming this rally. And honestly, we in our testing against level 1 passes could not replicate the kinds of results we're seeing in the real world. Now, granted, when we test, we're using, top tier commanders and what we think are top tier builds and blah, blah, blah. We'll have a separate video where we talk about countering Attila and Takeda. And we've done a lot of work into understanding those mechanics. However, this trio of things, right? The fact that Attila is going to make it so that he does a ton of counterattack damage to you. So you don't want to swarm the rally anyways, but he doesn't have a way to generate rage, except we'll talk about that. And Takeda makes it so that, gosh, you're swarming us. Well, guess what? Your swarming us helps us. It is the best thing you could possibly do, and you are filling your hospital at a rate that is just honestly astonishing because of the counterattack damage. Now, there shouldn't be as much counterattack, madness, insane damage as there actually is. So why is it that Attila and Takeda seem to have nearly 100% uptime on their active skills? Because guess what? Again, this active skill, Fierce as the Fire, it's an amazing, I'll say it's a decent active ability. But so much of what Takeda is doing also depends on rage that he doesn't have. He doesn't have rage to be keeping this active skill up all the time, which also means you get 30% more damage. But when you're swarming the rally, and if you have the right build, there's something very important that's happening here that we need to talk about. And again, these game mechanics are very critical. When we look at a commander that has the attack tree, and I'm not yet ready to be sharing the builds that we have on Attila and Takeda, although at some point in the not too distant future we will, there is this talent, Burning Blood. Grants an additional 6 rage every time this commander's troops are attacked. Well, guess what? When you swarm a rally with, let's say, 5 marches, let's say you've got 5 marches swarming the rally. You are now feeding that rally 6 rage a second for every army that's hitting it. Now, let's say it's 5 armies that are swarming. That's an additional 30 rage a second. 30 rage a second may not sound like a lot, but it's a huge amount of additional rage that Attila and Takeda didn't have before, and now you're giving them nearly 100% uptime on the active skills of both of those commanders, which is savage. That is how Attila and Takeda is wrecking everything. People swarm the rally or attack it at all. They do less damage than they would have otherwise, because now you've completely nerfed the damage that the Garrison itself is doing. You're not outpacing that amount of damage that would have been dealt, and it is just wrecking you. That is what is going on. Because often it's not just 5 armies that are swarming, it's like more than that. 30 rage a second, just for perspective. If we just jump into, let's say, let's go to the skill tree. Let's get a commander that's got the skill tree, pardon me. Instantly restores 60 rage whenever an active skill is used. So the way that works is when an active skill is used, you get 60 rage. There's a second of downtime, and then the second active skill is used, you get 60 rage. Well, if you're swarming with 5 armies, you're getting 30 rage a second, which is even better than Rejuvenate. But it costs us barely any talent points. It's at the very beginning of the attack tree. So you see what's at work here that's so totally nuts with Attila Takeda is, yes, Attila Takeda is very strong on its own. However, the way that people are battling into it is profoundly amplifying its effectiveness on the battlefield. So yes, is Attila Takeda broken? We need to still talk about that. But the thing that's making it more powerful than it should be is the way people are responding to it. The way you respond to this combo cannot be the same as the way that you've responded to other combos in the past, such as, by the way, a commander like Alexander the Great, who also has Burning Blood. Alexander the Great is great for rallies, one of my favorite commanders, obviously, and Burning Blood is here. It is a very powerful talent. Now, Alexander the Great hasn't done as well because there's not as much anti-swarm technology built into whatever pair you're going to use for Alexander the Great. And frankly, there's a reason that Alexander the Great and Yi-Song and Charles Martel are very popular as a pair for rallies. And that is in part because they've got this extra rage gen, which means more shields, which is pretty good. But also, you know, you're powering out the AoE damage from a commander like Yi-Song by virtue of that extra rage. That's a part of the reason why this commander is also deceptively good at rallying stuff. Now, there's a broader question here of should you swarm a rally, and it's still going to depend a lot on kind of what the commanders are. Let's take a bigger step back, talking about the meta game of Rise of Kingdoms and what Attila Takeda kind of means for that meta game. One thing I want to call your attention to is the fact that commanders can only be used in kingdoms that have like a certain age. At the very top of the screen over here, you can see it says that. For instance, Alexander the Great can only be used in a kingdom that's over 120 days old. You look at, let's say, Attila Takeda. These are commanders that can only be used in kingdoms 240 days or older. A part of what is happening in the evolving meta of Rise of Kingdoms is they control the rate of power creep in the game by virtue of constraining which commanders can be used. And if we control that rate of power gain by virtue of time, we're basically admitting that over time, perhaps there will be power creep, which is why we're constraining and controlling what that meta could be. So there may be some amount of power creep here. I'm not a game designer, so I don't know that I can definitively say like, aha, there's been power creep. But what I can say is that we need to look at the commanders that are available and what is being used and the kinds of results that you're getting. Because I totally get that it is frustrating to be battling against Attila Takeda if your kingdom has not invested in Constantine or doesn't have access to a commander like Wu Zetian, because now you're using commanders that were available in either the 90-day time frame is when Richard I becomes available, or if you're using Martel, like this is a commander that was available at the start of the game. You're using a season 1, like a meta commander, a season, almost like this is a season 0 meta commander, to battle a season 3 meta commander, where there may have been some power creep. So that's not a choice that I think is going to go particularly well. And you may be saying, well, I'm frustrated because like I invested in these commanders, and I will say, well, hold on a minute. Like I still use these commanders and I still feel like they're amazing at certain things. Does Attila Takeda make other commanders obsolete? And let's talk about that for just a second here. If you look at a commander like Richard I, okay, Garrison commander, right? I don't think that your very best bet is going to be using like a Richard and Charles to defend a Garrison, but let's say you were, right? Or even, like, it doesn't matter. Any of these 3 commanders, Charles, Richard, and Yi-Song, like, you're using some combination. Like, I don't know that that's the best way to defend against Attila and Takeda. But these commanders are all still amazing. Yi-Song still has so many uses, right? So many uses, even though they might not be the very best to defend against Attila Takeda. And maybe they are. There's probably some testing to be done with some pairings that, like, even we haven't looked at yet. Richard the First is one of the very best in Ark of Osiris, the literal best to have in a garrison in Ark of Osiris. So, like, is this commander not good anymore? No, they're still amazing. Are they still amazing in the open field? Yeah, right? Like Charles Martel, still phenomenal in the open field. You'd use him to run around and get places quickly. I still think in a Season 3 world of rallies that, you know what? Alexander the Great and Charles Martel, if I was running infantry, that's what I'd be running as the rally. Now, that's going to change probably with Guan Yu and Leonidas, right? So we're going to see a little shift there. But Martel still has amazing uses in Rise of Kingdoms. So, like, is that meta broken? I don't know. What I will say is that you probably want to be looking at least like a Season 2-ish commander to be battling against a Season 3 rally lead. And, you know, those sorts of commanders would include like Constantine and Wu Zetian, right? Like commanders that are deeper into the meta and have likely had some amount of relative power creep over time, because that's how the meta is controlled in this game. All of these previous commanders are still phenomenal investments. However, the role in which they play shifts slightly as new things come into the meta. Now, the meta we do need to talk about is rallying things, because it does seem like there is a single combo that you want to use in rally leadership, and that is Attila Takeda, assuming that you're using cavalry. Now, the thing about Attila Takeda, when we evaluate, are they broken? And that I just want to call to your attention is that I would not say Attila Takeda are amazing in the open field. I would not say Attila Takeda are amazing in Sunset Canyon or Ark of Osiris in that like open field battling capacity. Like, they've kind of got one role, and that is to rally stuff as a pair. And there might be other uses for Takeda and Attila. Like, I have not done enough testing with these commanders in other configurations to say definitively, like, the one and only use is rallying. But it could be that the very best use is rallying, and that they have less diversity in their applicability given their sole single focus, which is on rallying stuff. So it seems like an investment in this set of commanders might mean that you're kind of doubling down, kind of min-maxing on the one thing, which is rallying stuff, right? Rallying stuff. And of course, there are optimizations you can make to sort of make that go even better than you might have thought otherwise. I suppose we can talk about that piece when we talk about countering Attila Takeda as well. This video has already gone on for quite some time, and I'm just like talking. They are meta for launching rallies as cavalry, and like they're probably the very best for rallying in general. But there's always been a very best in the game at any moment in time for rallying stuff. Gosh, this has got to be a two-parter where we talk about countering Attila Takeda, because we've been getting pretty solid results on defense against Attila Takeda, and I think that you can too. So let's cut this one here, and I'll kind of summarize with my, without having at all answered the question, is Attila Takeda broken? I'll say that I certainly think that what is happening is misunderstood, and that misunderstanding of how these commanders work is leading people to make choices that are making them feel broken. And they may or may not be, but definitely with the way they're being countered, like, I would say they're broken, because, like, if you look at it without understanding all of these mechanics at play, you'd think, like, this is insane. But actually, like, how it works is just all there in the listing of the skills and abilities. But when you read them and understand that combination, that's when it should click, like, oh, a part of why they're so strong is we're not doing it correctly. We are making them stronger by the choices that we're making and how we handle them. I hope this is helpful. We'll talk about how to counter this pair, because they're counterable, I think. And, you know, overall, if there is an additional takeaway here, it might be that, there's a lot of intricacy to the mechanics at play in this game. And I love that strategic depth personally. When something is happening and we can't replicate it, I really like to go deep on the mechanics. And that's the only reason I'm able to convey this to you in the way that I am today, is that we spent hours upon hours upon hours trying to replicate the kinds of results that we're getting actually in the field on a level 1 pass where there's no deaths involved and we're just sort of rallying ourselves with, one person on one side of the pass and other people on the other side of the pass. And we couldn't replicate the kinds of results we're seeing in real life because of those mechanics, right? And only because we'd spent all that time could we. I kept saying, like, I don't understand. We can't get these results. What are we doing wrong? Like, what's happening? And then we crack the code, really looking deep at this stuff. So again, I hope that the hours of testing and play that we've done with these commanders help explain to you kind of a little bit what's going on there. I, by the way, have to give like a hat tip to the fact that like this skill is also extremely powerful in making Attila and Takeda just do tons of damage. Someone somewhere did some math and I haven't validated it. So like, please just, don't take this at face value. But, the fact that there is a, let's see here, increase the attack for the next 2 turns has a 25% chance to increase all damage out by 50% and a 25% chance to increase all damage out by 100%. I mean, this ends up being like a 50% damage boost of all types of damage over time. Now, he's only doing normal attack damage, people. So this isn't actually all that much different per se than like an E-Song. It is better than E-Song's last skill, which elevates active skill damage by 50%. But this is not all that far off from this skill, because Attila and Takeda, you're using they only do normal attack damage anyways, and they do counter attack damage. So it is definitely better. But right, like the majority of your E-Song damage was active skill damage. Anyways, we've talked enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this explanation is helpful. I thought we'd run through a report and try to validate just this last piece of the puzzle, whether or not swarming this rally is actually giving more chances. Just like burning blood, every army that's hitting it is generating 6 rage. I wonder if every army hitting it is giving that 10% chance to, reduce normal attack damage and taken and counterattack damage taken, which is destroying your season 1 meta garrisons, right? Like, it's destroying your Charles Martel and Richard I, because that's how they were getting all their damage done, and now you just nerf the heck out of it. So, topic of passion, lot to talk about, another video coming. Again, I hope sincerely this is helpful. It's been a crazy week, y'all. It's been a crazy week. Until next time, no. Please like and subscribe, right? You like these kinds of insights? You like these kinds of insights? You want these kinds of explanations? Like and subscribe. We'll explain how commanders work. And if there's other commanders where you're like, I don't understand why this works this way, well, just let me know. We'll explain it. We'll explain it. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. Oh my gosh. I've been waiting so long to make this video. I hope this helps. I sincerely hope it does.